totally forgot to put my shoes on, and I realized I'm not working out in this video, so it doesn't matter. Why am I like this? Roll that intro. Hey YouTube, welcome back to Carolyn Getting Fit. My name is Carolyn, and I am on this fitness journey if you're new here and you don't know what's going on. When talking about health and fitness, a friend of mine brought up a really good point, and that one thing that could be added to the discussion is that of mental fitness, mental health, things like that. And I think I finally reached a point where I'm ready to talk about like a breaking point that happened to me several years ago. So this is going to be a little bit long and involved, and it does involve a diagnosis. So it's not going to be like a lot of triggers, I don't think. We'll say death does come up a couple of times, but so if that bothers you, maybe not the best video for you. But so here's the story. In 2017, I was accepted to graduate school in Budapest, Hungary, Central European University. I believe they've since closed operations in Budapest, but I would have been a part of a class that was there in Budapest. So yeah, great. Dreams coming true. I'd always wanted to study in Europe for an entire degree, and I couldn't wait. I was very happy. The year before, I'd been accepted into University College Dublin, Ireland, but I couldn't get the finances in order to go, and the way grad schools tend to work is that they, in Europe, at least from my experience, they don't have a lot of like spring intake, so I had to wait a whole year. So I graduated in December of 2005 with my bachelor's degree, and then in like August of 2016, I was supposed to go to Ireland, and I couldn't, so I had to wait until the following year in the following intake cycle to go to school in Budapest, where I was accepted and able to go. But about 2 months before I was supposed to go, my father unexpectedly, either way, even if you expect it, I don't think you do really when it happens, he died. I was at a point where I couldn't take off from work because I had to keep working. Like, I took a few days here and there. I got the bereavement pay, but I kind of pushed down all of that grief, all of that suffering, all of those feelings, like way down inside me, so that I could keep going and keep making the money so that I could go to school. And he died the 4th of July. I was leaving August 28th, or around there, I believe. So really, not a lot of time, and I didn't really get to process a lot of that grief. And, you know, one thing, it's a quote that I read from a book. I think it was The Fault in Our Stars. I'm not sure. Pain demands to be felt. You will feel it one way or another. That trauma will express itself, whether or not you want it to. I truly believe. So, a week or two before I'm supposed to go to school in Budapest, my stomach started acting funny. Everything just started kind of acting strange, acting weird. I wasn't doing good, but I thought it was nerves. Like, I'm moving to a country I've never been to an apartment that I rented sight unseen, where I don't speak the language of anything. I mean, I've been told that they speak pretty good English, but I don't speak Hungarian at all. And just, you know, a bunch of doubt and a bunch of concerns, a bunch of worries that I had about moving forward when you have a step like that in your life. My mom did decide that she would go with me to help me transition for about a week, so that was great. That really took a lot of stress away. And it's funny, she suggested or asked me if I wanted her to come with me about 5 minutes before I was going to ask her to go with me, but it was last minute. It was less than 2 weeks before I was going to leave that she made the decision to come with me. And then, so we get to Budapest, we get to my apartment, everything was above board. I'd never rented an apartment like on my own in the United States. So I've definitely never done it in Hungary, and there are things that they did that you don't do over here in the United States, like you don't pay cash. One of the things that I've heard from apartment managers in the buildings that I've lived in anyway is never give cash to an apartment manager. They're gonna take it. And I guess if you don't have a receipt, that's when I was in Budapest, they did give a receipt, but I also learned that business over here, when we say we'll have something to you by tomorrow, it's usually there by tomorrow, the next day at the latest. They told me they would have my contract for my apartment the next day, and I didn't get it until like 4 or 5 days later. So just expectations and cultural differences that were not matching up, also causing a lot of stress. So when I got to Budapest and it was all there, it was all above board, everything was cool, we moved in. It looked just like the pictures when I was moving my stuff in, which was excellent. Things kind of settled, and I realized I had a few days with my mom in a new country. We could do something exciting. First thing we did was go to a TGI Fridays. Because I don't think I've seen one in the USA in forever. Like, I know they used to have them when I lived up in Northern California. They had several, and I don't know if they all closed. I haven't seen any. So, like, the last time I've actually eaten TGI Fridays was in Latvia, because there was one there. But, we went there, and I was having trouble eating, and that happens to me on occasion, but I didn't really think much about it at the time. So we're kind of going through the motions, doing a little bit of sightseeing, a little bit touring around, our own walking. Like, we walked from my apartment to Stephen's Basilica, and then to the Chain Bridge, and just walked around various parts of Pesh side. We never got to the Buddha side. And I just felt myself like slowly doing worse and worse, and not feeling good, and not feeling good. And then it just kind of continued. I don't want to say it came to a head, because it never really did, at least insofar as where I was in Budapest. But we went to a pharmacy to get like Imodium and something like that to like help my stomach out. And I got really sick at one point in time, and I tried to call a hospital, and I asked if I could have their address because I was having trouble finding hospitals, and they said no and hung up. I don't really want to put any blame. I don't know why that happened, but that was an experience of mine. My mom went back to the pharmacy where we got some stuff for me and told the lady, like, my daughter's really sick. What can we do? What's going on? And the lady gave her a little business card for an English-speaking doctor that would make a house visit. Doctor made a house visit, said that it was probably salmonella from having ice cream that was out in the heat at one of the vendors last week. And I said I wasn't even here last week, and she was like, oh, it's still that. Gave me some suppositories, some random other drugs, and I just continued to get worse, and my fever would get super high. It would break, and I would be sweating profusely. Every time I tried to eat, it wasn't working, and I eventually told my mom, like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. So we went home. My mom left a day before me. Well, she left Budapest a day before me. Her first flight was from Budapest to Stockholm, and then the next day she was flying Stockholm to home. I flew out the next day. I went Budapest to Berlin, and then Berlin home. We got within like 2 hours of each other. I could barely stand, and I remember at one point in time looking at myself in the mirror in Budapest and feeling that I looked like my skin was hanging off of my bones. My mom didn't see anything because it was a slow decline for her. Now my brother's seeing me 9 days later, and he said the same thing, that it looked like my skin was hanging off of my bones. And I went to the hospital and found out that over that 9-day period, I'd lost 15 pounds because of like the inability to eat. And so that's like, as soon as I got home, like I changed my socks. I don't know why that was so important to me, but the two best things about getting off a particularly long flight, like I believe from Berlin to where I live, it was like 11 and a half, 12 hours. They asked me if I still had my gallbladder, and I said, yeah. And they're like, probably not for long. So I still have my gallbladder, fun fact. So that was not the problem. But it wasn't my gallbladder. That was the discovery that was made. And when they got the blood results back, they got them back very quickly. My potassium levels were below heart attack levels. So my potassium was very, very low. So they had to admit me and get me on a potassium infusion drip. And it took, I was in the hospital on a Thursday night. It took until the following Wednesday for them to finally diagnose me. And it wasn't until at one point in time when I was using the bathroom, I said I noticed that there was blood on the toilet paper. And they told me that no, there was not. And someone said, oh, if she says there's blood, we have to test. So they tested it. There was blood there. Colonoscopy done. And I have ulcerative colitis. I'm lucky in that I caught it very early and very quickly. And that my body has been very responsive to all of the medications that I've been prescribed. I don't know what I was prescribed while I was in the hospital still, but I know since then I've been on mesalamine. It works just fine. I haven't needed Entyvio or Humira or any of that. Not saying that those are bad drugs. If those work for you and you have ulcerative colitis, fantastic. But it was a one and done for me. We didn't have to search around for drugs, and for that I'm really happy. One thing that did happen that was a drawback though, between the time that I left for Budapest and when I came back, and I was in the hospital for 11 days. And when I came out of the hospital, so it's 3 weeks later, I lost about 40 pounds. I'm not advocating for anybody to lose that much weight that quickly. I'm just saying, like, it was astonishing how quickly I went down and how quickly I went downhill from that. And knowing that I've been overweight my whole life and that weight loss has been a goal my whole life, my first reaction to having people tell me, like, oh my God, you look amazing, you look so great, was just, my father died, I lost my college opportunity, I nearly lost my own life, and I'm being told I look great. Awesome. That was really good, and that's why, unless you know if somebody is trying to lose weight or trying to gain weight, don't say anything about someone's body unsolicited. Let them bring it up. Even if someone says, like, oh, hey, in that scenario, I've lost 40 pounds in 3 weeks, a good follow-up is, so how do you feel about that? Not making an automatic assumption. You know? That's all. Because that really hurt. And it just made me feel really lost. Like, why am I being told this now? Because one thing that I was silently screaming about, it was such a huge change from having all of my dreams come true, losing my father, and having my world crumble down below me, and trying to refine my footing and refine my future, because I thought I lost a part of myself there. People would say, like, oh, are you going to go back to school? Are you going to do it in Europe now? And I was just like, no, that adventurous woman, that free-spirited girl, she's gone. She's dead. I'm not leaving the state of California ever again. Like, I didn't even want to leave the city that I was in, but I was willing to make exceptions, like, for Disneyland, but that's about it. I was afraid to live. I didn't want to try living again because it almost cost me my life. But I have overcome that. But it's important to know that that's where my mind frame was at that time, and having people praising me for a weight loss over which I had no control, it just made me want to die. Like, I wanted to die. I was not going to take any steps to achieve that, but I wanted to not be alive anymore because there was so much pain and so much uncertainty, so much confusion. I didn't want to do this anymore. But I started to live again. I don't know when it changed. I don't know what happened. But one day I decided, no, I'm not just going to spend my entire life afraid of being alive and afraid of living. So it is possible to break out of that. But again, you shouldn't comment positively or negatively on someone's body unless you know what they're going through, unless you know what they want. And going through the confusion and the uncertainty and everything like that kind of brings me to the point of this, and that mental fitness is just as important as physical fitness, as dietary fitness. And you've got to take care of your brain too. And the way I broke out of that situation that I was in, that lost confusion, it's like I just had to really realize that something bad did happen. It was bad. It did have lasting effects. I did develop a disease that I'll have for the rest of my life. But I was able to take like, I think it was actually one of my managers at work asked me, like, are you going back? Are you going back? And I was just like, no, dude, I can't go back. Sorry, I have an itchy thing right here. Oh gosh, did I just wipe the makeup off? No, it's okay. It's okay. One of my bosses at work asked me if I was going to go back, and I said, no, I'm not going back. I'm scared. And even beyond being scared, like, I have this disease now. It's going to take medication for the rest of my life to take care of. And he was like, you know, they have medication all over the world. Lots of places have medication because there could be somebody else with that disease too. That kind of changed things because I hadn't considered that. I mean, yeah, I know they have medication, but I don't know. I'd never heard of this disease before. Maybe it hasn't been diagnosed in certain countries. I don't know. Rationality was not a part of it, okay? But that's when he said that, I was just like, wait, maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe there's something going on here that could work. I was scared, obviously. I was scared the first time. Why wouldn't I be scared this time? But I managed to buckle down, apply for a Central European University again, changing majors to something I'd never studied. I was denied. But then I applied to Maastricht University of Brno, Czech Republic, and that was one of the greatest decisions of my life. And I'm very proud to have gotten my master's degree from them. Let me show it to you. My desk is a mess and I don't want it to be seen. But I just had my graduation ceremony like last month. Yeah, last month. Wow. You know why. But yep. I'm a master of European politics. So it's I'm just tying it up all pretty. I didn't need to do this. But yeah, so I was able to overcome all of the fears and doubts. And I know fears and doubts aren't necessarily a sign of mental illness. But my mom and I were talking, and she said that I changed, and she, like, almost an entire complete personality change. And she can almost pinpoint exactly when it was. And it was when I had ulcerative colitis, or when I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And my attitude changes like that, and she understands it's not my fault, but it's still been a change of, I'm now a lot more prone to anxiety and a lot more prone to depression. And I don't know what it is about that situation that caused that to change. But it did kind of change who I am, and I've had some troubles fighting that on some days. But this video has been kind of long enough right now, so we're gonna just make this a part 1 of mental fitness, if that makes sense, if that's okay with you guys. And maybe in the future I'll do a part 2 of what I do and whether or not it works, and other bouts of things that I've gone through that are more mental illness rather than this physical illness that has had an effect on my mental illness. I know this has been long and this has been kind of jumbled, but at the same time, it also really has helped me to kind of talk about it, because I tried to record this video several times in the past without the mental health angle, just explaining a part of me and what I've gone through. And I had huge breakdowns and like anger outbursts because I hadn't really processed everything that had happened. But now I guess I kind of have, because I got through this. I know I was looking down a lot too, and I do apologize, but it's still kind of hard for me to talk about. But I really was ready. I didn't have to push myself at all. This has been a lot more easy than I thought it would be. But yeah, so all in all, that's the tale of me and how I developed ulcerative colitis and how it has affected my life in the 4 years since I've had it. Because yeah, 4 years almost. 4 years ago last month I was diagnosed. We'll bring this back. We'll keep touching up on it. I'm still learning how to YouTube, so be nice. Thank you, especially if you made it through the whole video. I know it couldn't have been easy. Yeah, that's pretty much it, and I will see you later. Not ready to focus on a day yet, but I am trying to get much more consistent and much better about this. Okay? Whatever day you're watching this, no matter how far into the future it is, I hope it's beautiful. Okay? Bye, YouTube.